Welcome to the Beyond Sugar Freedom podcast. I'm your host, Danielle Dame, holistic nutrition coach and speaker. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode here on the Beyond Sugar Freedom podcast. So excited for today's guest. Dr. Amie is here with us in the house. Welcome to the show, Amie.
Thank you, Danny. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, so beautiful. We actually just recorded my episode on your podcast and now you're coming on mine. We're spending the day together. This is so great because I just absolutely love everything that you're doing. And I know my audience is really going to get a lot out of this conversation, and I'm excited to see where we take it for sure. But I love starting things off, with new guests on the show. I've just introduced you with your bio in the intro, but would love to hear a little bit more of your story. I think this is a fantastic place to start for everybody to sort of get a sense of who you are and what got you here. What is your journey with health and obviously getting into the amazing work that you do today?
Well, thanks for asking. I think that's important for people because we talked about your story and your journey on my podcast as well, for people to really resonate. And, when they hear you talk about how you got here, it's kind of like they can get pulled into your story and go, oh my gosh, she gets me. And that really is, my message to your listeners and to my audience and anyone out there dealing with the thyroid problems and the hormone problems and all of that I have been there and done that. It's not like I just popped into the space and it's like, I can optimize you. No, I went through my own really hard, really frustrating journey. And this was actually back in my 20s. I was competing in figure competitions. And for those who don't know what that is, kind of like bodybuilding, only more feminine. You're dieting down pretty hard. You're eating a diet of chicken, broccoli, asparagus, fish. You're going to the gym twice a day. It's very restrictive, a little bit mental. Not quite sure why we do it, but it's a challenge. For the type A's, it's a challenge. And that's what I wanted to do because I grew up as a fat kid and I struggle with my weight all the time. And moving into fitness and into this competition realm gave me that carrot to reach for, to shoot for. It was that challenge that really drove my type A personality and let me take control of my body and really get the weight under control as well. Well, so I had done many of these. I did plenty of shows. I did some fitness modeling, did some photo shoots. I would diet as hard for a photo shoot as I did for a show. And there was one show in particular that I was getting ready for. And I had a coach, just like we all have to have coaches to guide us because you can't think for yourself. And I had to do the check-ins with the coach. So every week I would send my progress pictures. I would get on the scale. I would send my weight, send my diet, all of that. And every time I sent it, the scale was going up. And it was going up 5 pounds. And in that one, you couldn't really see it in the picture. So I was like, maybe I'm retaining water. Or maybe I ate something wrong or whatever. And then it went up 10 pounds. And then 20. And then at the point it hit 25, I backed out of the show. I went into a pretty deep depression because I started self-blaming, self-loathing. And that's where I was thinking to myself, like we all do, well, maybe it's my fault. Well, maybe I should eat less and exercise more. Well, maybe if I go to the gym 3 times a day. Well, maybe if I just cut this little thing out, everything will be fine. And then I started thinking, whether I was right or not, I started thinking I was being judged. I'm being judged by my trainer. I'm being judged by the people at the gym that know I'm doing the show. Oh yeah, she's not on her diet. She's eating way too many donuts over there. Look at that. And it was this big emotional spiral of what was happening to my body. Like I wanted to scream to the world, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm on my diet, right? This is my body rebelling against me. So I started going to doctors because that's what we do. That's what we all do. At the first sign of, wait, something's wrong with my body. What's going on? We go to our doc. And I said, hey, doc, this is my diet. This is my workout plan. I'm 25 pounds heavier at this point. I'm not stepping on the scale anymore to see if I'm up 30 to 35 or 40 pounds. And I'm 5'2". So this isn't cool. Like my back started to hurt. I was really, really tired. In addition to carrying that extra weight, I'm wearing big baggy clothes because I'm ashamed. And he says, well, we can test you and the tests come back and you're normal. Everything is fine. Normal, air quotes. So I left that office. Yeah, I was frustrated, but you always hear about second opinions. So I went for my second opinion And you know what? You're normal. Everything's fine. Just eat less and exercise more. I'm like, what?
Wow.
And he showed me a BMI chart in his office. I'll never forget that. And he points to this, well, you're here, so it's not really anything to worry about because you're okay. You're not obese.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, well, I'm carrying 25 extra pounds on my 5'2" frame. Can I strap a 25-pound weight around your waist and see, you can tell me how you feel at the end of the day? And let me know if you need a massage because your back's going to hurt, right? So I go to doctor number 3, 4, 5, and 6, all who tell me that you're normal and everything is fine. I remember one of them was a metabolic specialist. I got really excited about that one because metabolism was actually in the name of what he does, a metabolic specialist. And that one is when I cried in my car. I remember leaving that appointment, head on the steering wheel, praying to God that somebody would find something wrong with me, because then that would be a name. That would be a reason. It would be a diagnosis. It would be a label for what was going on with my body. And finally, I went to doctor number 7. And believe me, I think about this all the time. What if I would have stopped? What if I would have stopped at 2? What if I would have stopped at 5? Because 5 is a pretty decent number to just accept what the docs are saying and, whatever, move on with your life. This is how you're going to be. But I kept going. I went to doctor number 7, and this doctor actually touched my neck and said, swallow. And she goes, oh, you have a goiter. We're going to get an ultrasound. I'm pretty sure you have Hashimoto's. Here's a pill. So at that point, I was pumped. I was praising the Lord. I'm like, thank you. I got a name for this now. I got a pill. Everything's going to be fine. And 5 months later, it wasn't. There was no change. There was no change at all. So here we are again, back at square one. And I kept hearing the name of this functional provider. And back then, I don't even think we used the term functional. I think it was like integrative or alternative or something in that realm. And I kept hearing his name, and I heard it 3 times. So, like when you hear something multiple times from multiple different sources, you're like, okay, I'm getting the message here that I need to call this person. So I called, made an appointment, and he ordered some tests right off the bat. I mean, it was 10 vials, right? I'm thinking, what is this dude even testing? There's like 10 vials of my blood going out of my body. And we sat down for that first initial consult for 90 minutes, not 5, not 7. I wasn't getting the boot out of the office because it was the office Christmas party at the endocrinologist's office, right? 90 minutes he spent time with me. He went through all of my labs, went through my supplements, went through my nutrition, asked whether or not I poop every day. It was beautiful. It was everything about me in 90 minutes. And he painted the picture. He's like, well, because this is low over here. I know it's normal, but it's low here. And then this is over here. And he drew up a treatment plan that actually worked. And I lost the weight and I got my energy back and I was me again. And at that point in time, I shifted careers. So he became my mentor. I went into functional medicine, specializing in the thyroid, because here's the other thing. I was in a major medical system. You always hear, and I'm sure you get this too, some of your clients coming in, they've been to Cleveland Clinic, they've been to Mayo. I was in Pittsburgh UPMC. It is a major medical system with multiple experts, and no one can figure it out. So I thought, well, if I'm going through this in my 20s, how many other women, how many other people are going through this at all ages, in all cities, in all these major medical systems or smaller medical systems, and they're not getting the answer that they need, and they're not getting the treatment that they need. So that is why I'm here.
Wow. Holy smokes, that's quite the journey. Oh my goodness, Amie. I can just imagine like just the tenacity that you had and the perseverance that you had to be able to continue on. I know so many listeners would have, like you said, given up after seeing 2 experts, right? Or 3 experts, but you were like, no. And I just really want to pull that out because I think that's such a beautiful testament to how hard we have to fight for ourselves sometimes. And you knew there was something wrong, right? You knew that something was out of balance. There was something going on, that this wasn't normal for your body. And you fought until somebody listened to that. And yeah, unfortunately, we do live in a world where we do have to pay for that. We have to go and, get somebody who we can spend the 90 minutes with, who actually cares about our whole picture and can paint that for you. And thank goodness you ended up there eventually, right? And navigated your way there and, got those answers. That's so incredible. Yeah, really, really, really glad that you did that and you kept going, right?
No,
And I
thank
hope
you. Yeah,
that
you
anybody
can't stop.
listening,
You can't stop. You have to have
yeah,
hope and you got to keep plugging away.
yeah, and trust yourself. Like what I hear in that is you really knew, you had to advocate for yourself. And it's so sad that we live in a system where we have to advocate hard. Like and to not necessarily just succumb to the white lab coat saying you're fine, right? Well, then I must be fine. There's something wrong with me, right? And you were already starting to have those thoughts for sure. The self-blame of like, well, if all these really important doctors who went to school for a really long time, say all these things, they must be right and I'm wrong. And that's where we start to really, really doubt our own inner wisdom, right? And our own self. So kudos to you not doing that or pushing through that at least and coming out. And I hope anybody listening who might be dealing with that, I know that's so common, especially for women, right? Oh, you're fine. We'll just be put down, and poo-pooed, right? Versus no, like I know there's something wrong with my body, figure it out or else, right? Like
Yep.
fight for it. So yeah. Okay. Considering obviously we talk a lot about sugar here on the show, let's go there next.
Yeah.
What is the connection here between thyroid health and blood sugar? Which is it? Dysregulated blood sugar that affects our thyroid, or is it our thyroid? Like chicken or the egg? What's the connection there?
A little bit of both, but the majority that I see is thyroid disorder comes first and it starts to dysregulate your blood sugar control and your insulin. So someone's walking around, let's say, whether it's thyropause, which comes up as we're going into perimenopause and menopause, very, very common for the thyroid gland to downregulate and just not work as well. And this is where we'll see a lot of hypothyroidism and or Hashimoto's appear. Now, Hashimoto's being an autoimmune condition, that can also kind of turn on during puberty, pregnancy, any kind of hormonal change, stressors, any kind of emotional trauma that can flip that Hashimoto switch on. But what we see is that thyroid gland that is the master gland of your body, it has control over your sex hormones, over your blood sugar, over your mood, over your brain function, over your heart, over your bone, over your muscles, everything. Your temperature, body control, your blood pressure, the whole deal. It has control over your metabolism. So that thyroid gland being off, being low and slow, being hypo, is going to start to shift how our bodies use glucose and how our bodies pump out insulin from the pancreas. And what I start to see, and I see this on I would go as far as say 98%. 98% of my hypothyroid patients have insulin resistance, have glucose that's out of control, and it's not dependent on what they're eating. So what's happening is they're really, eating a nice clean diet. Their thyroid is not being treated, or maybe they're walking around undiagnosed like I was. And we start to see these high glucose numbers. Maybe they're wearing a CGM. They're like, why am I in the orange and the red all the time? My CGM is yelling at me. I don't understand. I'm eating steak and asparagus. What's happening? And it's coming from the thyroid that you just don't have that control over your blood sugar and your insulin like someone does who doesn't have a thyroid problem or who has an optimized thyroid. So what we'll end up seeing are these crazy cravings, because as I described to my patients, let's say you eat something and your pancreas is pumping out too much insulin. I don't care if it's, a sweet potato and a steak, whatever. You get this huge surge of insulin and it's higher than what you and I would experience. And then where there's that high, there's an equal and opposite low. So we could be talking about insulin pumping out. We can simplify it and just say your glucose. So your blood sugar itself going on this roller coaster, high and low. Well, we know in the low, there's that physiological mechanism that kicks in where our bodies say, hey, Danny, you know what? Your blood sugar is kind of low. So it'd be a really good idea if you went to the vending machine, or if you went to Starbucks and got a super caramel macchiato latte sugary drink, because that's your fastest way to normalize. But the problem is you're not going to normalize. You're going to get a really quick blood sugar increase, but then here we go again, way to the top. Now you're going down again. Now you're going up again. Now you're going down again. You're literally chasing this physiological craving that, it's part willpower. You could say like, you know what, time out. I'm not going to do this to myself. I'm going to go for the good food. But the thing is if your thyroid's off, you could be eating the good food and you're still going to get that extreme spike.
Yeah. Wow, that's fascinating. Thank you for drawing that link. That makes a lot of sense. And you're explaining it in a way that, yeah, I've never heard before. So this is really, really incredible. And I think anybody listening, what I want to pull out of that is because I can think of a lot of my clients and my listeners as well, who just assume that all their blood sugar issues are going to be solved once they just start eating steak, right? Or they stop eating sugar, they detox from sugar, they're eating all the right things, like you said, and it can feel really hopeless to be like, well, what else is there to do? Like I'm eating really healthy, like low carb, like why is my body still all over the place with my blood sugar?
Yeah.
And I think this really gives a beautiful nugget of hope, that it's just a matter of sometimes tweaking or finding that area, whether it's the emotional, energetic piece, the thyroid, right? Like there's all these little areas that we do need to make sure are working in tandem because everything affects our blood sugar, not just eating a yam or some ice cream. Right. So there's a lot of other pieces there. And I really appreciate you bringing that forward because if anybody's listening that feels stuck or plateaued, maybe it's time to go see Dr. Amie and get some thyroid support and really see what's going on there and properly test. This is also a topic that I think everybody just needs to hear over and over again, right? And I'm curious your thoughts on that. I know for myself, I'm 4 months pregnant at this point and very closely watching my thyroid and very proudly staying on top of my blood sugar and thyroid because, diabetes can get kicked in, thyroid issues can get kicked in. My hormones are doing all sorts of fun things right now. And, I went and did my free tests with my midwife that the government will pay for here in Canada. And then of course I went and did deeper tests with a naturopath because I wanted to actually get the full picture. And luckily things are good right now. I'm going to test again in the third trimester just to keep track and after, but yeah. Can you speak a little bit to the testing, what should people be looking out for? And maybe that difference between, really, I guess I want to plug and encourage everybody to do deeper testing because what you're going to get, I don't know if it's the same in the States, what you're going to get here in the traditional world is like, oh, you're fine. They're just testing, I think the THS it is called. And that's it. And there's the range that's totally out to lunch as well. And they're like, you're fine. You're not dying. So you're good. Go home. Right.
Right. Well, that's exactly what happened to me. So if I go back now, I would pay money to have those first set of labs that all the docs did on me because I guarantee you, but I can guess. I based on what I still see happening in conventional medicine with all the people that I work with, doctors are testing TSH and maybe free T4. Yeah. So what this means for you, if you get that normal diagnosis, so maybe you go into your doctor, same as I did. Hey, doc, I'm gaining weight no matter what I do. I can't lose weight. And I'm tired all the time and or constipated, hair's falling out, depressed, anxious, brain fog, memory loss, joint pain. The list goes on and on and on of thyroid symptoms. I mean, it's pretty long, but those are the big ones that I often hear. And you go in and they say, okay, well, we're going to test your thyroid. Or you go in and you say, hey, doc, I really want a thyroid panel done because I heard this lady on a podcast and she was talking about getting my thyroid checked. And you go in, you ask for that, you're going to receive TSH and maybe free T4. So let's break that down. TSH is thyroid stimulating hormone. It's actually released by your pituitary. It is not a thyroid hormone whatsoever. It is our brain sensing whether or not there's enough thyroid hormone in the body. And if there's not, it's going to start yelling at the thyroid. So think about your kid and they're not listening and your voice keeps going up, 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 up. And it gets higher and higher because you want them to do what you want them to do. That's the brain sending that thyroid stimulating hormone message to the thyroid. It's like poking it, like, wake up, come on. So if TSH goes up, that's a no-brainer. I mean, of course, you're hypothyroid. Your thyroid is not listening to your brain signals to produce more thyroid hormone. But what if it's not? What if it's not up? What if it's normal? What if it's even optimal per functional medicine ranges? Well, we don't stop there. We can't stop there at all. I mean, that's a great prelim test when it's included in the rest of the panel. So next we go to free T4. Now T4 is the inactive thyroid hormone. It has to convert and become T3 to be active, to get to your cell, to turn on your metabolism, to grow your hair, to turn on your brain. But it's important, but it's not. We can't stop there either. We can't. Because I don't care how much inactive thyroid hormone you have in your body. I want to know how much active. What about the hormone that's going to do the job and get it done? That's your free T3. And when I say free, I mean unbound. It's unbound T3 thyroid hormone that is ready to attach to the receptor site on the cell. That's why we want to test the free. I mean, you can throw in a total. You might hear total T4, total T3. That's great, but it's not as important. So if you only get a total, I'm sending you back for the free anyways. You might as well get it all done. Yeah. And then we move on to reverse T3. And this is one that in Canada, it is a pain in the ass to get because you basically have to beg, plead, and steal and then get it done yourself anyways to get reverse T3 done and just pay out of pocket.
Yeah.
So reverse T3 is very important, is the anti-thyroid hormone. And the way I want you to think about it is a bouncer at the club. So you got too much reverse T3 in your system. We want reverse T3 there because it's our survival mechanism. If you're lying in the ICU, the ER, and you're dying, we want reverse T3 to be up because you don't need to grow your hair or lose weight or think through complex issues as you're lying there trying to survive. Where we don't want reverse T3 high is when you're trying to live life on a day-to-day basis where you do want to lose weight and grow your hair and think through complex issues. So reverse T3 elevated is a bouncer outside of your cell door, arms crossed, saying, hey, T3, what's up tonight? You're not coming in. You're not coming in the club. You're not going to do your job today. And so too much reverse T3 in the system is going to block that active thyroid hormone from doing its job. We have to test that. And then we have to test TPO and TGA. Those are your markers for Hashimoto's. Now, is that going to change the way I treat you? Not really. At the end of the day, I want your numbers great and I want you living your best life and feeling like a rock star. But if we know that you have Hashimoto's, then we get a little bit more strict with that whole gluten-free thing. And then maybe we use some black cumin seed oil to bring those antibodies down. And we really keep an eye out on other autoimmune conditions because autoimmune begets autoimmune. Where we see one, we see more than one. So we want to just know that for general knowledge. I want to know if your thyroid gland has been beaten up. Maybe it's now like itty bitty and jagged. If you've had Hashimoto's for years, if not decades. And most people do. Most people go undiagnosed with Hashi for at least 10 years before it's diagnosed.
Wow.
By the time you get diagnosed, your thyroid gland has literally been destroyed. It's smaller, it's jagged, it's not working properly. So it's good knowledge to have for just moving forward in your treatment.
Yeah. And what a benefit. I mean, I'm such in this mindset of getting ahead of those things, right? That's why I've done this full panel my first trimester. Like, I want to be on it. Make sure my blood sugars are still good and cholesterol and all the things that can go out of whack during pregnancy, right? So like getting on top of these things before it's 10 years too late. And like you said, it's totally, been damaged. Can the thyroid regrow? Like, can a damage, say it is super damaged in that way, like you just mentioned, all misshapen, like, can the thyroid regenerate itself? Can it come back to life?
To a point, but you're not going to bring it back after 10 years of damage to the point where you're not going to need medication.
Yeah.
And if anybody's telling you that out there, or any practitioners out there promising that, you got to run the other way because that's just not true. So now let's take thyroid cancer. So with thyroid cancer, our goal is to actually keep TSH suppressed because we don't want the brain nudging the thyroid to regrow. We just removed the thyroid or removed a part of the thyroid. We removed the cancerous part. We don't want that regrowing and growing cancer. So we want to keep that suppressed. So because of that mechanism, we do know that the thyroid tissue can regrow to a point. But in non-cancer Hashimoto's, thyroiditis, again, you're not going to get that kind of regrowth to where you're going to be medication free. And just let me just piggyback on that statement really quickly. I use the term medication loosely. When I'm talking about, and what I want everyone to think about are two different categories of, we'll say, pharmaceuticals. You have the medications over here. Those are your Band-Aids. Those are the statins and the antidepressants and the sleeping pills that your doctor will readily write a script for. I mean, you could go in and say you're fatigued and you're going to get an antidepressant script, right?
Yeah.
But over here, we have hormone replacement medications. That's your thyroid, your bioidentical hormones, your progesterone, estradiol, testosterone. Those are beautiful, life-giving. Yes, they're made by our pharmaceutical company, but beautiful, life-giving medications. These are the Band-Aid medications. So I have no problem putting someone on the proper thyroid hormone replacement dose strength, whatever it looks like. We nuance it to you, and having you live your best life and feel amazing and not gain weight when you look sideways at a brownie, than the goal to be, I'm on no medications, but I'm 50 pounds heavier and I can't get out of bed in the morning, but I'm going to pride myself on not being on medication.
Right.
Which one is better? So you have to think of medication, thyroid treatment differently.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that reminder. Thank you for bringing that forward because, I can definitely call myself on that sometimes, being so like anti-pharmaceuticals. And I'm like, no, all these things. And luckily I haven't needed, but even in the past, I've made that decision to take antibiotics, to help my body heal, and like weighing all that out. I mean, not every, like you said, medicine is the same or has the same purpose. So I really appreciate you bringing that forward. It's not as easy as like, yeah, hell yes or hell no. There, there's a gray area for sure. And understanding, the different components there. Okay.
Right.
So this is so great. Thank you for laying the foundation and explaining all this. I think my listeners this is really, really helpful information, especially in connection with sugar and some of the blocks that many of my listeners I know deal with. I'm curious to hear for you. I'm not in it as much as you, especially around the thyroid, but I do see in the world around us, right, more and more, especially women, having these diagnoses with Hashimoto's or hypo or hyperthyroidism, like just thyroid issues in general.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that is affecting our thyroid health, and why do you feel like it's getting worse? What is it that is, in the world around us, and bring in anything that you want here, that is really causing this to become more and more of a prevalent problem for most?
I really truly believe that it comes down to the toxic world that we're living in. So we can draw a couple different roads into the thyroid. Number one, you have the direct effect. So toxins, environmental toxins, we know chlorine, fluoride. I mean, you and I had fluoride treatments as kids, right? Well, maybe you were lucked out. Your mom saved you, but mine didn't. So
nope, I had them. They still offer them at the dentist.
Pills. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Fluoride toothpaste. There's chlorine in our water. There is bromide everywhere. It's almost impossible to avoid. The couch over there, the rug right there, your clothes. I mean, it's a fire retardant. It's sprayed on golf courses. It's put in Mountain Dew and in bread. So you really can't avoid those three toxic halides that are directly toxic to the thyroid. Add on top of that, mouthful of amalgams. That's nothing but mercury, hugely toxic to the thyroid. Every time you bite down, you're off gassing that mercury. And then just the xenoestrogens, the endocrine disruptors, the phthalates, the parabens, all of it, the plastics, all of that is directly bombarding your thyroid. Now, we also have the endocrine disrupting effect, like I said, the xenoestrogens. So now we're being exposed to these fake estrogens. We're being exposed to direct endocrine disruptors. That is how they are categorized, as an endocrine disruptor. If we disrupt the endocrine system, even if you start to disrupt your hormones, your hormonal balance, your estrogen, your progesterone, your testosterone. I mean, let's face it, we're seeing kids go into puberty at the age of like 9 and 10 these days. I mean, come on. That is an endocrine disruptor that is affecting their body's hormonal cascade that isn't even supposed to happen right now. Those are fake hormones going into the kids' bodies that are sending them into puberty at an early stage. So when we're being exposed to those, even the direct effect on our hormones can cause a thyroid condition to appear. So we talked about Hashimoto's. I talked about pregnancy, right? Pregnancy, you're pregnant, normal, beautiful. I mean, it's amazing. But your hormones are on a roller coaster right now. Mm-hmm. And even if you had the perfect environment, non-toxic, everything, you lived in a bubble, that hormonal shift is enough to flip the Hashimoto's switch. So, it's kind of like we have to look at all the different things that are coming at us, natural and unnatural, that can turn on hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's. And it's a lot. It's a lot right now.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that forward. Just thinking of the toxic load that we all deal with, right? And I think so many of my listeners and even myself in the past was so focused on just the food, right? Like just the food. Okay, I need to eat organic, and that's
there's
not
that too,
save you,
right? I forgot to mention the food. Yeah,
yeah, but still, just thinking about like the toxins on the food, right? And not even noticing all these other toxins starting to float around in our world. And no doubt, I mean, I can see that as you're speaking, over the last couple decades, the like massive increase in a lot of these horrible toxins being added into our lifestyles, and
Mm-hmm.
how easy it is to just totally avoid it. Everything that we use that's plastic, like you said, I just learned about that a couple of years ago, right? The like flame retardants on this cheap couch behind me, and my carpet that I got from Costco, right? And like the clothes, the tights that I'm wearing, I got from Costco. Like, gosh, what's in there, right? And it can feel damn near impossible these days to really get rid of all of that. And I'm curious, like, if you can speak to, or if you have any advice or wisdom for people who might be feeling just overwhelmed by the concept of that, and, stressed and anxious, because I know I've been through this journey myself of like, there's no way I can get all the toxins out of my home. We've got our air purifiers. I don't use any scents in my home, just essential oils. Like, we buy as much, organic cotton things as we can, and our sheets, and like, but there's still things, right? There's still, we only use glass in the kitchen, and metal and cast iron for cooking, and all these changes that we've made, but we know that there's still going to be chemicals leaking in. So yeah. How have you personally like dealt with that like reality that we live in this pretty toxic world, and maybe found a balance, or a way that you can kind of make peace with where you're at and support your body, obviously, and not soaking in some of that?
So I interviewed Dr. Tom O'Brien, and he broke it down beautifully and really took a lot of stress off of me and off of my listeners as well.
Please share.
One step at a time. Yeah. Literally, I mean, you just take one change each week, and don't put it on yourself where you get overwhelmed. You're like, oh my God, I have to change everything. I have to get all new glass containers, and I need to throw away the plastic, and I need to change out my body wash and lotion and makeup and shampoo, and stop. One thing at a time. Maybe this week is your containers, if you still have plastic. All right. Go to Amazon, go to Kohl's, whatever, Costco, get the glass containers, throw out the plastic. You can do it. Step one, right? I mean, you just take it piece by piece, step by step, so that in 6 months, if you compare yourself to Susie Q, your neighbor, you've gone through and made all these changes, and by 6 months, you're good to go. And it wasn't overwhelming, and you just did one thing at a time. Where Susie's still over there going, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed. I don't know where to start. I went to beauty counter and I changed my makeup, and now I'm too overwhelmed. So just screw it. I'm not going to do anything else. And she's made no changes in 6 months because the overwhelm just took over. Yeah. And I really like that, just making those tiny changes, because you can't do everything. I mean, when you're trying to live your life and work and raise a family, or do whatever you're doing, run a business, that's too hard. That's too hard. And that's why, I mean, I'm very honest on my social as well. And to my audience, I'm not perfect. Like, I had a weekend of beer and pizza. Yeah, I did. Yeah. I mean, it just is. And if you think that you're going to be perfect 100% of the time, forget it. You're not. We're all human. We're all human.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I'm the same. I think that's really important to find your own balance, right? And to find that, that slow and steady, as I'm hearing you talk, I'm even thinking of my journey. Like, when I started really honing in on, I didn't know it at the time, but like getting more natural was kind of how I called it, right? Like going back more to the earth, getting more natural. It was like 8 years ago. And it's just been like every year we're becoming more and more hippie. We're becoming more and more like organic, and wanting to grow more of our own food, and wanting to, we found our grass-fed organic cow that our friend raises for us. And like all these things have just started trickling in, right? And one thing at a time. I found I actually make my own soap. Fun fact, make my own soap. And, these things that, now that I think of it, it's just part of my second nature now. It's like not even a second guess, right? And all these things have massively shifted. Whereas, funny story, my brother recently had a cancer scare, and he's the type of personality completely different than me, that he's all in at once. And he did exactly what you're talking about, where he stressed himself like crazy. I taught him a few things about the endocrine disruptors in his home. They have those like plug-in scenty things and I'm like, just FYI, these are cancer causing. Anyway, so he went on this rampage and got rid of like everything in his house, changed all of his soaps, changed all of his smelly things, told his like girls that they have to spray their perfume outside, and all these really, really big changes. And it was even stressing me, like watching how quickly he was going. And I know that's kind of his personality, but also was very stressful. He was very stressed, like, and thinking he was harming himself. And that can be scary when you go actually through a diagnosis and then you realize that there's all these things in your life. And, for the rest of us, these like slow approach tends to be a lot kinder and calmer and a lot easier on the pocketbook. When you are starting to buy things that are healthier, unfortunately it costs more. And that can be a really big block for a lot of people, right? Buying the healthier version of shampoo or whatever. And when you start doing it just slowly, it doesn't seem so scary, right? It's not a huge dent. It's like an extra $5 on your bill this time, right? And I think that can really help, psychologically too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm curious, then, coming back to this conversation around blood sugar, it sounds like you do a lot of work with your clients. Obviously, there's such a link between hormones and thyroid and blood sugar. What are some of the other pieces that you bring in personally, either for yourself or for your clients, to support and help with blood sugar and maybe even insulin resistance issues? Like, are there any tips that you have there that you could share?
Yeah, two things come to mind. The first one is berberine. I love berberine. It is, when you really get down into the research, and I did a lot when I was doing my doctoral degree. And so I have this whole library of berberine research, berberine papers. And it's fascinating. It's like berberine and type 2 diabetes, berberine and insulin resistance, berberine and Alzheimer's, berberine and cancer, berberine and they're all positive. They're all showing this very positive effect on the body through the use of berberine. And, it's interesting when you really look at things that work. We're in this day and age of, there's new stuff coming up all the time. There's peptides, there's bioregulators, there's all these new, stem cell therapies and all of that. And I think that's fantastic. It's kind of the next thing in medicine. But if we go back to old school, and berberine is one of those ancient herbs from the barberry plant that was used in Chinese medicine as an antibiotic because it has antibacterial, antiviral, and antifungal properties to it. We use it as a part of a gut healing protocol. So it's very, very good for the gut because it's killing off the bad microbes in your gut. So it's fantastic for that. But then we're also finding that it works like metformin without the side effects of metformin to lower that insulin response. So if someone is insulin resistant, I like people's insulin to be below a 6 when we're looking at labs, fasting insulin. And we'll see that lowering of insulin effect. And then we'll also see that balancing of blood sugar. So how I explain it to my patients is just like we were talking about that roller coaster in the beginning of the highs and lows. Now picture that graph. If I was drawing you that roller coaster, high, low, now take that and squish it together where we see more of a wave-like pattern where you're still going to get that little bit of a blood sugar insulin response because you have to. I mean, even protein elicits a blood sugar response. You're going to get that little bit of a wave and then you're going to get a little bit of a dip, but it's going to be a really nice, smooth wave-like pattern. And that's going to help with the physiological control of blood sugar. Yes, you still have to work on the emotional component and the thought processes and everything that you do with your clients. That's why on my podcast, I said everything blends so beautifully together. You can't do one without doing the other. But if you get control of that physiological response, it'll make the internal work a little bit easier because you won't be driven by chemical processes in the body. So berberine would be number one. Number two would be increasing protein. And I don't know what you see with your clients, but man, these ladies, you ask them, and I think we're seeing more and more, like with Gabrielle Lyon and other people in this space talking protein. I mean, this is old school talk for me. I mean, I was a bodybuilder. We focused on protein, right? I mean, that's like, wait a minute, you guys are now talking about it. I was talking about it back in 1998. So yeah, increasing protein intake, that is going to be more satiating. That's also going to have it's going to allow you to have better control over your physiological cravings because you're not going to be starving. And again, you're not sending your own blood sugar on a roller coaster because protein is more satiating. So I think those two things, when I look at ladies, they'll say, oh yeah, I'm eating enough protein. Then we total it up and it's like 50 grams. I like 1 gram per pound of lean body mass. So this is really easy for everybody to do. You don't have to break out a calculator. Don't even worry about that because there's a lot of different formulas out there and they just end up blowing my mind. You go 1 gram per pound of lean body mass. Well, how do I know how much lean body mass I have? What's your happy weight? What is your happy weight? So listen, if you're 170 and you're like, man, I just need to lose 20 freaking pounds. That's it. Okay. 150 is going to be your happy weight. So eating protein between like 140, 150, that should be your goal every day.
Yeah.
And sometimes you'll get a little bit less, but if you aim for that in general goal, that's going to be perfect. And that's how you calculate it.
Yeah. So helpful. Thank you for bringing that forward. The reminder that I'm feeling come forward, and I know that I'd love to hear your thoughts on this too, right? Is making sure, right? There's a massive difference in quality of protein between quinoa and steak, right? Like, so don't be fooled just by the word quinoa, right? And
Right.
many women are out there, myself included, back in the day when I was like, I'll go vegetarian because this is great. This is what all the cool people are doing. And, relying on those protein sources, plant-based protein sources, which are now being absolutely pushed to us, right? Either that or the crickets that we're going to all be eating soon. But, what are your thoughts there around like the bioavailability? And, maybe you can speak a little bit to that, the difference there in the protein for anybody who's not aware of what I'm talking about.
Yes. So huge. I'm glad you brought that up too. Huge difference in bioavailability. So when we're looking at amino acid profiles, amino acids are present in animal-based protein. So that's going to be your meats and your eggs and your fish and all of that. You can take an amino acid supplement. Yes. Bone collagen, bone broth-based protein powders are great. They are present in whey protein, but whey protein can really mess up your stomach. So I like to stay on the bone broth, bone collagen, beef-based protein isolate. Those animal-based proteins contain the amino acids that we need for preserving our muscle tissue, our lean muscle tissue that is metabolically active, that will protect you as you age. It is our muscle level. Muscle is our organ of longevity. And then when we're looking at hair, a lot of women complain about hair loss, either hair loss from low thyroid, because that is directly correlated, hair loss from a variety of malnutrition, not enough nutrients, not enough amino acids. So this is what I'll say, and I very rarely take on patients who are vegan. And if I do, I bring the caveat of, I don't know if I can get you to 100%. I can get everybody else to 100%. I don't know if I can get you to 100%. Because just look at, and this is so stereotypical, I'm so sorry, but just bear with me on this. Look at somebody that works at Whole Foods, right? You got a bunch of hippies in there for some reason. Every time I go into freaking Whole Foods, no matter what state I'm in, like there's always these like hippies and they're chilling out the register and they have horrible hair. Like I'm always looking at their hair for some reason. I'm like, yeah, you're a vegan, aren't you? Right. So if you look at your typical vegan vegetarian and look at their hair, it's going to be dry and straw-like and really thin. Now, I'm not saying that you can't have that happen to you if you're a meat-eating, carnivore. You can, but you have a much better chance if you do have that happening to your hair, then it's something else. Then get your thyroid checked, get your hormones checked, check your ferritin level, for God's sake, right? Check for dysbiosis in your gut or celiac because you're not assimilating your nutrients, but at least you're taking in the amino acids that your hair needs for a building block. Yeah. That's the big problem that I see. And if you just think about, even if you don't know someone in Whole Foods, picture that analogy, but just picture it, right?
I can see it.
You can see it. You can you can tell me if you experienced it too during your vegan time. But yeah, I mean, it's just that I think that speaks to the importance of protein and animal-based protein more than anything.
Yeah, we need to definitely stop being afraid of that. And that's a whole nother podcast for another day for sure.
Oh yeah, that's a whole nother, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm even like, it's even more important for me now. I'm growing a human. Like that protein is so important. And I've seen that. I haven't quite got into that conversation yet, but like the vegan moms, right, who are trying to grow humans without proper protein sources, it just absolutely terrifies me and like just hurts my heart. Yeah, we need that protein. My baby needs that. I'm having bone broth every day. I'm having my meat. I'm having actually today for the first time ever, I had a goose egg for breakfast. That was interesting. I don't know if I'd do it again, but to try it, we found them roadside here at a farm and I was like, okay.
Give it a try.
Yeah, different types of eggs. But anyway, yeah, playing around with that is so deeply important. So this has been amazing, Amie. I'm learning so much from you, and I know my audience has as well. I know that you do also have a special gift for the audience. I'm wondering if you can speak to that. You have this amazing, it's called the Thyroid Connection, Unlocking the Secrets to Overcoming Chronic Disease. Would love if you could share a little bit about that and what they can expect when they come and grab that.
So, I think it's important that we understand it's a lot of what we talked about today. What causes inflammation? How is inflammation and what we're eating and what we're exposing ourselves and our thyroids to, how is that connected to other disease states? So like I said earlier, I see about 98% of those with hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's have insulin resistance. Well, at what point does that go to type 2 diabetes? And at what point does that progress on? And we know that obesity and blood sugar dysregulation in general, whether you're full-blown type 2 diabetic or not, is really a root cause of many different disease states. Alzheimer's is considered type 3 diabetes. Just all that inflammation in our body, cancer, it feeds on sugar. I mean, we can see that connection. You and I could draw a sugar thyroid disease state with every disease, like Venn diagram, and connect all the points, because it all comes back to very, very simple things that we can do, that we can address, that we can change in our bodies and our life to make a huge difference in our overall outcome as we age, our longevity, how you look, feel, and perform. Is it always about how you look? No, but that's a big part of it in terms of confidence and how you're, walking around living life. How you feel is huge. If you feel sluggish, if you feel dragged down, if you feel inflamed, you're dealing with headaches and migraines all the time and joint pain and muscle pain and bloating and all that, you're not going to live life to the fullest. You're not at all. And then how do you perform? How do you perform at work? Is your brain on fire? Are you making good decisions? Are you advancing at work? Are you back here going, man, I can't even think today. I can't get this task done. I'm behind 2 days in emails. That's huge. Or athletic performance or whatever it is, even if you're out on the golf course. All of that comes back to inflammation in your body. How's your thyroid working? How's your hormones balanced? What are you putting in your body? It's that simple.
Yeah. Amazing. And this free guide is going to help people kind of make that connection and support with that.
Yeah, make that connection and just start on that journey. I mean, there's so much to it. So obviously they can dive into my podcast, Thyroid Fixer podcast that you were on as well. And listen to, I mean, you and I on our podcast, we give so much free information that they can, listeners can go down tons of rabbit holes and really pick and choose what they want to listen to. But this is the start, at least start here, and then we can expand out from there with your questions.
Yeah. Amazing. You beautiful segue, because I would love for everybody, who's resonating with you, anybody who's struggling with their thyroid, which feels like every woman nowadays, to come and connect with you. Where can people come and connect, find you online? I know you mentioned the incredible podcast, highly recommend, your episodes are just so informative, but where else can people come connect?
Well, thank you. So yeah, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook at Dr. Amie Hornaman. We do have a Facebook group called Girl Fix Your Thyroid. That's the title of my book that's coming out. And in that group, I mean, people, you can post your labs. If you're not sure, if you're like, well, I'm listening to this and I think maybe I have a thyroid problem, go ahead and jump in there, ask your questions, post your labs. I'm in there. My nurse practitioners are in there. My health coaches are in there. And my patients that could basically, I mean, they could step into my shoes at any day because they're so knowledgeable, right? They're in there answering as well. So you have a ton of support in there. And it's just a way to find out, do I have something that needs to be addressed, and how do I go about doing it?
Yeah. Wow. That's such a beautiful gift to be able to support people with that. Definitely go check that out. Yeah. Thank you for doing that, Amie. That's really, really, really needed, right? We need that support, and we need to come together and be able to, address this, right, and do things differently. So yeah, this has been incredible. Thank you so much for coming in, sharing your wisdom. And of course, as always, thank you everyone for tuning into another episode. We will see you on the next one. Thanks for tuning in to another episode. If you're loving what we talked about today, please remember to subscribe, leave a 5-star review, and share this episode with someone you love. It helps me incredibly reach more people and help more women who need this information. And if you're ready to go deeper into discovering your unique root causes and patterns keeping you hooked on sugar year after year, be sure to come and check out the brand new free root cause quiz that will give you actionable items to finally begin healing your relationship with sugar from the inside out. You can find the link to download this quiz and other amazing resources in the show notes below. I also wanted to just take a quick minute to share a disclaimer. The information provided in this podcast is for general purposes only and is not at all intended to be professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. And as much as I do my best to bring you up-to-date and accurate information, please remember that I'm also sharing my opinions, stories, and ideas that are ultimately not supported by mainstream science. My personal advice should not be taken as professional advice, and you are always encouraged and advised to consult with your own healthcare practitioner before making any changes to your health and wellness routine. This podcast is intended to inspire and offer you alternative views to healing your relationship with food, mind, and body. It is up to each listener to take responsibility for their own health and wellness decisions. I hold no liability or responsibility for your results or lack thereof. Thanks for tuning in to the Beyond Sugar Freedom podcast, and we can't wait to see you in the next episode. Let's go.